Chris Graham here for Trailblazer RV. Today we're going to take you through a new vehicle orientation on a 2019 Sportsmen Classic 181BH. Starting right here at the front of the trailer with your propane system. It's got dual 20-pound propane tanks. Both of these are full right now, and an automatic switchover propane regulator. So with the supply arrow pointed at this bottle, that makes this the supply tank and this the reserve tank. We recommend opening the valve on both propane tanks, and the regulator will draw this tank completely empty first and then start to pull propane from this tank. Once that happens, this sight glass that's clear right now will turn red. At that point, you can flip the selector over to the other bottle, take the first bottle off, and go and refill it without ever shutting down your propane system. Behind the propane tanks is your 12-volt battery. This is an upgraded battery, a Group 31 deep cycle RV battery with a couple of leads going to each post. The red wire coming from the trailer is the positive, going to the positive post, and the black wire coming from the trailer is the negative, going to the negative post. This trailer also has an optional solar panel installed on it. So the red wire with the fuse holder is for the positive from the solar panel, and the black, the negative from the solar panel. So both black wires to the negative, both red wires to the positive. With the battery, even with the solar panel, we recommend for winter storage taking the battery off. Store it inside, somewhere where it's not going to freeze, and if possible, over the course of the off season, put a trickle charge on it once while it's in storage. The brake control on this trailer is the Prodigy RF. So it works with a wireless receiver in the vehicle, and the trailer's power cord basically plugs into the Prodigy RF module, which plugs into the tow vehicle. Here around the side is your passenger storage compartment. You have one key for the trailer, and it works with all of your storage compartments and your entry door and deadbolt. Here in the storage compartment is your 30-amp power cord. This will attach to the trailer there at the back, and many RV sites that you camp at will have 30-amp power, but for those that don't, we also supply the 15-amp park adapter. It just fits on the end of the cord like that. This is the wireless receiver for the Prodigy RF. The guys will take you through that when they set up the equalizer and hook up the tow vehicle. You've got stabilizing jacks on all four corners, and with these stabilizer jacks, once you've got the RV parked in place and relatively close to level, you can crank these down to be snug with the ground, but don't actually lift the RV with them. They're not for leveling specifically, as they are for stability. So you want to get the trailer pretty close to level, and you can fine-tune your leveling a little bit with these, but mostly just stability. Here at your running gear, your tires are inflated to 50 psi. It's stamped 50 psi on the sidewall of the tire, and we do recommend running it right at 50 psi. Your lug nuts have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds. We recommend periodic retorquing of your lug nuts, especially if you have a rim off and back on the trailer. And right here in the center cap, this metal cap can be popped off with a flathead screwdriver to expose your Easy Lube axles. You can use a grease gun to grease your inner and outer bearings to prolong the intervals between wheel bearing repacks. Important to note that this doesn't eliminate the need to repack the wheel bearings, but instead of doing it every year, maybe you'll do it every 2 or 3 years. This is where that 30 amp power cord hooks up. Here's your sewer termination system. So we supply a new 20-foot medium heavy duty sewer hose. It's stored inside the rear bumper right now. And when you go to dump your holding tanks, your sewer hose will attach right here. The other end goes into the ground. You've got two valves here, your larger black valve and your smaller gray valve. Always pull the black valve first. Let that sewer tank completely drain, then close this valve and pull the gray valve. That'll allow your sink and shower water, your gray water, to flush out the contents of that sewer hose so that there's nothing left in it when you have to disconnect. Right above that is your city water connection. If you're parked at a site that has pressured water, you can hook your hose directly up to here to operate the RV from the pressurized water. If you're going to do that, we recommend using a water pressure regulator, just a little brass fitting about that long that fits on the end of your hose to maintain proper operating water pressure. Right above that, you can fill your freshwater reservoir. If you're not camping at a site that has water pressure, you can fill your fresh tank here and you use the RV's water pump. For either of these, you can use just a normal garden hose, but what we would recommend is one of those white drinking water specific hoses. That way you won't get the plastic garden hose taste in your water. Here's your hot water tank. A couple of things with this hot water tank. It is a gas electric hot water tank. So there's two black reset buttons here. The button on the left is for electricity. The button on the right is for propane. And if the tank ever overheats, most likely because it was started up with no water in it, you might trip these resets. And you'll just have to come out here and press those buttons before the tank will start up again. The plug here in the bottom can be pulled out to drain the tank in the winter. And on the end of that plug is a rod about this long. That's your anode rod. And the function of the anode rod is to corrode over time to protect the inside lining of the tank. So the impurities in the water corrode the rod rather than the lining of the tank. It can get very corroded and pitted looking before it needs to be replaced, but it does need to be replaced periodically, depending on the quality of water, usually every 3 to 5 years. Before you pull this plug out, make sure to use the pressure relief valve to bleed the pressure off of the tank so that you don't get sprayed when you remove that plug. Here around the back is where the spare tire is mounted. It's important to note that the trailer doesn't come with a jack or a wheel wrench. So not a bad idea to make sure that you have a wheel wrench that fits these lug nuts just in case you need to change your tire on the fly. Here around the camping side, you've got a couple of vents. On the bottom here is your furnace vent. Only thing to really know about that is it does get very hot. So make sure that if there's young kids around the trailer that they know to stay away from that. And above that is your fridge vent. You can remove this panel to access the back of the fridge for repair work or cleaning, but for the most part, just a vent. There's a vent here and one on the roof to allow some airflow behind that fridge. Your lend-a-hand door handle folds either direction over the door or the wall. A lot of our customers like to travel with it over the door, just in case the door were to pop open in travel. It can't come open on you. It just folds out like so for use. The step folds away into the entry frame of the door and just folds down nice and simple like so. These legs are adjustable. If you're in an uneven ground, you can adjust those legs. Your awning is controlled from just inside the door. There's a switch that says awning and a switch that says slide room. So if we press and hold the out button on the awning switch, make sure when you do that your door is not latched all the way open so as not to interfere with the awning arm. The awning extends 8 feet You don't have to extend it the full 8 feet. You can stop it at any point if there's a tree in the way or something. And it's a height adjustable power awning. So you can pull down on one side or both to tip the awning down. We recommend leaving one side lower than the other so you can control where your rainwater runs off. Put it back up, just push up on the arm. If you'll follow me into the trailer, I'll take you through a few more things. The first thing we'll do is run the slide out. And right here beside the awning switch is the slide switch. Press and hold the out button to extend the slide. The slide extends 3 feet, and at the end of its travel you should hear a little bit of a ratcheting sound, or hear that motor start to labor, and at that point you can remove your finger from the button and the slide is all the way out. Just like so. Next to those two switches are a couple of light switches, one for your main interior lighting and one for your outside awning light just below the awning fabric. Below those is your remote meter for your solar panel. This RV has a solar charging system installed on it. So there's not much that you need to do here, but it does tell you a few things. It tells you right now your battery is at 100%, which is 13.8 volts. And it's not currently charging at all because the battery is at 100%. But that'll show you the status of your battery and your solar charging. Right around the corner is your stereo system. So it's AM, FM, Bluetooth, auxiliary, and HDMI, as well as USB, and has near field communication if you have a device that can sync with it just by holding the device close. For most devices, you just access the Bluetooth menu and access the Bluetooth menu on your phone and pair the two. One thing to note, you have a speaker selector here. This stereo runs both your inside and outside speakers, so you can set it to inside, both, or outside, but be conscious of what speakers you're using, because if you're sitting in the RV listening to music, your neighbors may not want to be listening to the same music. Here at the fridge, it's a gas electric automatic changeover fridge. So if we just turn it to the on position and select A for automatic. When it's in automatic, it'll always check for electricity first. If it has electricity, it'll run on that. If it doesn't have electricity, it'll automatically start up the propane. You can override the automatic to only run on electricity or only run on propane, but there's not very many situations where you'd want to do that. You may opt to run the fridge on propane even when you're plugged into electricity if you're worried about blowing a breaker, or you might find that the fridge cools a little faster on propane than it does on electricity. But having said that, it still takes several hours to cool an RV fridge, so we recommend getting the fridge cool the day before so that it's nice and cool when you load up your food. There's also some temperature adjustment on this one, 5 little snowflakes. I usually leave it in 3 or 4, but depending on the ambient conditions, you may have to make some adjustments there. Below that, on the other side, is your power converter. This is the power center for the whole RV. So you can see you've got 110 volt breakers for all of your AC circuits, and fuses for all of your 12 volt circuits. You'll notice that you have primarily 15 amp fuses there, but you do have a couple of 40s as well. It's not an uncommon thing in an RV to blow a fuse, so we do recommend having some extra fuses along just in case you need to change one out at the campsite. With this power converter, when it's plugged in and running under heavy load, if your battery is charging or if you've got a lot of lights turned on, it may make a little bit of a humming or a buzzing sound. It's completely normal. It's just the cooling fan working in it. Right here next to that, you've got a couple of things. Your GFI power outlet. just like the GFI outlets in your home with a test and reset button. The only main difference in an RV is this is wired with several of your other power outlets. So if you trip your GFI, you may be, even though you're plugged into power, you may not be getting any power from your power outlets. If that's the case, come here, press the reset button, everything should go back to normal. And right below that is your combination propane and carbon monoxide detector. This will do three things. It'll alert you obviously to a potential propane leak. If that's the case, you'll almost certainly smell the propane before the detector will go off. It can alert you to a carbon monoxide situation, or the third thing that it can do, and the most common, is alert you to a low voltage situation. This is wired into the RV's 12-volt power system, so if your battery gets very low, it'll beep periodically like a smoke detector does when its battery is low, just to alert you to low voltage. If that starts beeping, the fix may be as simple as plugging in the trailer to charge the battery. Here in the bathroom is your monitor panel. So you can check the level of your battery and all of your holding tanks here. So you can see the battery is completely charged, fresh tank is completely empty, black and gray holding tanks are also completely empty. This is also where you will activate the water pump if you're operating off of the RV's water reservoir, and this is where you'll activate the hot water tank as well. That red light comes on showing that the tank is not running, and if we give it just a few seconds we should hear the burner light up and that light will go out. Just like so. If that light doesn't go out, or if it goes out and it comes back on, that means the tank didn't light. And in that case, the first thing to check is your propane. Make sure you haven't run out of propane, but you also might go outside and check those two black reset buttons on the tank. They may need to be reset. For the toilet, anytime you're using the RV's sewer system, you'll want to use a potent RV toilet chemical. We have the chemical in powder, liquid, or tablet form. Regardless of the type of chemical you use, when you go to put it into the tank, put the chemical into the bowl, push halfway down on the foot flush to fill the bowl with water, and then dump the whole works into the tank. It's important to put that chemical down with some water. It needs some water to activate it, so anytime you refill the chemical in your tank, make sure you put some water down with it. You'll want to add new chemical to the tank immediately after dumping the holding tanks, every time you dump the holding tanks. The other switch that's in here that I didn't point out that says tank heater, that is the 12-volt heat pads on your holding tanks. If you're camping in some cooler weather, might be dipping down below freezing, you'll want to turn those on to keep your tanks from freezing, but be aware they use a lot of 12-volt power. So if you don't need to use them, best to leave that switch off so you're not unnecessarily depleting your battery. Right next to the bathroom door is the thermostat. This controls the furnace in the RV. So if we turn it up to temperature, you'll hear the fan come on. That fan is going to run for 10 or 15 seconds before the burner actually lights up, just like the hot water tank. You should hear that in just a second. There we go. So now if we give it just a couple of seconds, we should have warm air blowing from the furnace. And I'm starting to feel that warm air now. When it comes up to temperature, or when you shut it off, exactly the same thing happens, only in reverse. The burner goes out immediately, but the fan is going to run for another 30 seconds, up to a minute, just to go through its cycle. With this style of thermostat, make sure when you've turned it off, you slide the slider all the way over and hear an audible click. That way you know the furnace is right off and it's not going to be coming on while the RV is in storage and running your battery and propane levels down. The air conditioning is controlled right here from the air conditioner unit. You need to be plugged into 110-volt power for this. Air conditioner, microwave, and power outlets are the three things that you need to be plugged into power for. For the air conditioner, you can turn the settings here from low and high fan or low and high cool. You can run the fan without the actual air conditioner running. On the cooling settings, the air conditioner will kick in. And then there's also a thermostat control here that you can set so that the air conditioner cycles on and off as needed. You can lift up the bed here to access the front storage. What else? I think that pretty much covers it. Hopefully you've learned something about the 2019 Sportsman 181BH. If you have any questions, you can always get a hold of us here at Trailblazer or visit our website, trailblazerrv.com. Thanks for watching.